All right, guys, looks like we're live. I got a banger for you tonight. We are going to look at holonomic brain theory and holographic universe theories, but we're also going to talk a lot about synchronicity and astrology because holographic universe theory actually would completely explain synchronicities and the fact that astrology is often accurate. And there's another implication in all this that consciousness is fundamental and even architectural. So, basically, I've been doing a lot of research into those things lately. And earlier today, I was thinking about the numerology of my life path is 4711, right? And 47 is 4 plus 7 is 11, so it's 1111. And my whole synchronistic journey began with an 1111 synchronicity before I had ever heard about 1111 and had any kind of association with synchronicities and whatnot. And I immediately interpreted the glyph as a glyph of symmetry, right? So the 111 is magical expansion internally, and the other 11 is external. Eventually, I learned that the solar cycles are 11-year cycles and that our consciousness is connected to those 11-year cycles. And I, started to notice this like recursive stacking that, is integrated across scales and systems. Also interesting is that in fractal mathematics, 11 basically functions that way, like it has a reflective parameter, which makes sense. It creates symmetry. 5 times 11 is 55. You know what I mean? That's its functionality. So, anyways, I've never really put a lot of stock in astrology, not necessarily because I don't think that it is it's the same fractal, right, that underlies everything else. So of course the data is there, but in terms of whether or not people had accurately interpreted it, right, with all the different systems from different cultures and whatnot, that kind of puts it in the realm of like subjective, kind of sketchy empirical, support. So yeah, so today I was thinking about my own numerology with the life path and everything, and then also the fact that 2027 adds to 11, and my age will add to 11 in this year. So it's, a lot of 11s, and I've kind of been anticipating for a while that there would be some sort of breakthrough that year and some kind of massive change. And then I discovered that the human design system has the same prediction, and it's called the sleeping phoenix. And you know how important the phoenix symbolism is to my journey if you guys follow me, right? So all of these kind of synchronicities and whatnot just like piling up. And it got me thinking about another aspect of this, right? I was a bridge engineer in the National Guard. So a bridge builder, right? My job was to build bridges and blow them up behind me. Something that I've been doing, I'll light my way with the bridges that I burn, kind of, kind of thing. At least when I was younger, that was kind of a theme. But that bridge builder thing came up, and then somehow I got a hold of Gurdjieff's Enneagram book, and I'm a number 6, a devil's advocate, which is weird, but also a bridge builder, right? So in 2011, of course, I went to a sort of conference with these Native Americans that told me I was a builder of the Rainbow Bridge. So now I'm a bridge builder again. In the Hindu system, the lingam is your secret self, right? My 13-year-old girlfriend, when I was like 11, again, 11, I was 11, she was 13. See what I mean about this 11 thing? Named my lingam Hermes, and she had no idea who Hermes was. I absolutely guarantee you that. He is a bridge builder, right? Bridge builder between between the mundane and the ineffable, or reason and intuition, right? A creator of liminal spaces like crossroads. And so, God, what else is there? I could go on and on about this. I have had this bridge builder association the number 11 is associated with bridge building. You know what I mean? In my life path, 4711, 1111, like, so I started thinking about this and the holographic nature of reality and the holographic nature of mind. And I realized that what's actually happening is that the fundamental essence of the thing is like refracted or reflected in every arena around an individual. And it's just the same way that any other fractal design works, right? That's what's happening there. That's what synchronicities are. And the reason that we don't necessarily perceive all of these things, all of us, all the time, is our goddamn signal gating system, right? It is editing parts of the fractal out. So this, hologram that is our reality has distortions and it's not holistic, right? So being a person that has less of a signal gating system, I have been able to pick up on all this stuff. I think it also puts you in congruence with things like astrology, right? Because for me, when I've been navigating my life, I'm looking for the signs, symbols, hints, and clues, writings on the wall, rest is up to you. You know what I mean? I'm looking for that. I'm paying attention to it. I'm allowing it mostly, not as much as I should have, I would readily admit, to light my path and guide my way, right? So if your signal gating is editing too much, you're not going to do that. And therefore, astrology is going to seem less relevant. So, speaking of astrology, let me offer something that kind of hit me today. Let me see. Prophet Muhammad experienced the ascension. Prophet Muhammad was made up. He didn't experience anything. Your subjective experience of doing DMT and seeing God is just subjective experience. It doesn't really, and you're kind of flooding the chat. You should probably chill. And I'm not really down with all like the religious stuff. I don't like it. Yeah, ranting about Allah. We're done with that guy. Right. So the is our audio okay? Banged any mash? I don't even know what that means. Anyways, man, we have 4 folks in here. I'm kind of disappointed with the turnout because this is, pretty wild stuff, and it's kind of important. We're explaining some of the deepest mysteries of the universe here in plain terms that are probably factually substantial. It's funny because I've talked about having imposter syndrome in the past, and I had basically set out, even as a child, with this belief and this intention to try to prove that reason is not incompatible with what we call spirituality. And I'm realizing over the last few months, I've actually succeeded in doing that. And of course, I'm not alone in that effort. There are a lot of people right now putting connecting the dots, but it's still kind of an extraordinary feeling to realize. So, the astrology thing. A lot of you guys that follow me are plenty familiar with this story, but in case you're not, I'll give a brief overview, right? I set out from Virginia at the age of 21 telling my mother that consciousness has more of a role in creating our reality than people think, and I was going to prove it by going out to play with a surviving member of the Grateful Dead or two. And within a year of getting there, Phil Lesh had asked me for music, and then somebody sent a recording to Bob Weir, and he came down, and I didn't show up because I was scared, basically. I didn't know he'd already heard a recording, and I was telling myself, they didn't tell me it was him. They just said someone is important, but I did intuit it. I knew, partly because I went to that music store and signed up for lessons with Vernon Ice Black, because my inner guide told me, go to Bananas Music, sign up for lessons, and someone that knows Weir will introduce you. And that's exactly what happened, and I only had like 3 lessons, I think, before it actually occurred, right? So in like 2016, I guess, maybe 18, I abandoned music when my mom unalived herself, and I just like left the country and went to Ecuador. And as it turns out, my astrological chart, like I don't remember all the details, but Uranus had entered my chart in such a way that the AI that I asked to analyze all this stuff said you'll abandon your life mission and go into relative seclusion in order to reorganize your sense of identity, you will not abandon music permanently, but you will have a new identity associated with it, or a different kind of approach to it. And there is this period with all of these hyper specific details that was outlined, from over the last like year or two. And I was like, when is it going to break according to the astrological chart? And it said, as of literally right now, like yesterday, the day that Bob Weir died. And the theme of releasing an old identity, right? There was definitely part of me that, as long as he was alive, was thinking, maybe I can fix it. I even before I got sick from the complications from my surgeries, I was planning to do like an internet campaign to try to see if I could get his attention again. And it isn't as insane as it sounds, because I had a couple of direct contacts, and I was going to try to like really polish something up and record it, and then maybe tell a little bit of the story. Like, hey, Bob, remember when you got stood up in San Rafael by the guy with the blue guitar? Vernon sent you the record. You know what I mean? And I think also it was tying me to the regret as well, And when I heard that Weir died, in a way, I actually felt some relief to an extent, like I had been released from something. You know what I mean? Because it was a terrible thing to have this crazy lofty goal and then realize that it happened and I just didn't show up for no reason, because I was afraid he wouldn't care when he heard me play, because I'm an imposter, right? And he'd already heard a recording, and that's why he came down. So you know what I mean? Obviously, it still bugs the shit out of me. But the point is that cycle where I released this old identity ended the day he died. And, you have to be careful with this kind of knowledge. This is why we have a hierarchical system in the mysteries, right? Because what you don't want is to, like, if that kind of thing coincides with ego inflation, you can start to think that, like, Weir died because of your, story or whatever. I've seen this happen to people during this kind of awakening process. You know what I mean? It's not that. It's just an alignment of the underlying structure, the symmetries in the fractal. Back to that again. But yeah, that really got me, because there was just so much in there that was so highly specific and highly accurate. And the future between now and 2027 maps exactly to my intuitions about how it was all going to go. And it lines up with the cultural trajectory, that this merger of, I hate to even call it ancient esoteric wisdom, because what it really is omnipresent, experiential information. You know what I mean? It's not really anything that belongs to any tradition or that has any origin anywhere, but in gnosis, in direct experience of life and observation of the patterns. So the other thing about this is that the element of consciousness, and how that kind of fits in, and what all this could possibly say about it, right? Hope you're doing well. Thank you, Jonathan. Yeah, I guess I am. I mean, these revelations lately have been super interesting. I'm kind of irritated that the algorithm isn't pushing my shit even more. You know what happened, actually? I deleted this piranha video. It was just a short, and it had like 1.5 million views. And I deleted it because it was diluting the algorithm. I had like 100,000 guys from India every month that were watching it, and then they would watch my other content and just click away right away. Like, what is this crap? It's got nothing to do with piranhas. And I should have put it unlisted. So now my views have dropped by like hundreds of percents, and the algorithm is further just dumping on me. So please share these videos manually if you think they have value. Consider becoming a patron. We still have spot at our retreat events, so you can shoot me an email if you're interested in that, or consultations. Okay, so how consciousness kind of fits into this whole puzzle, and how these things indicate that it's fundamental or architectural. What got me thinking about this recently is that I was looking at the holonomic brain theory and the evidence for it, right? And so if you make a lesion in a part of a brain where certain information is stored, that information is still present globally throughout the network, right? That's because it's a hologram. And the thing is, though, if you destroy that information, if you remove that information, if you, I guess those words are fine, with meaning, it can actually be dissolved, right? So I thought, well, then we have some evidence that meaning is more fundamental than matter. Because when your medium of interaction with the brain is information, you can have a global effect on the system that doesn't happen even if you try to destroy it physically. But you could say, well, that is, you know, that applies to the mind in its domain, but that doesn't mean that it's true of the rest of the universe. I would disagree, partly because if it's true that there is the holographic nature to the universe and our mind is also holographic, then the same principles are going to, and machinations and whatnot are going to apply, right? But beyond that, when I was referencing how I was a bridge builder in the military, and then I'm a bridge builder in the Gurdjieff system, and I'm a bridge builder according to the Native Americans, and there was a Maori guy on TikTok the other day explaining exactly my life experience and archetype, and he's all type bridge in the comments if you know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? And just I told you guys a bunch of other stuff relating to that. Number 11 all through my life path, and it's the bridge builder thing. The Hermes Association, it started as a child for no real reason at all. Is also a bridge builder, right? But my fundamental purpose as an individual has always been to try to attempt to bridge spirituality and rationality, right? Science and spirituality, basically. Ever since I was a child, I sort of perceived that as the most fundamentally important thing that humanity needed to do. I saw the damage that religion was doing. I saw the limiting beliefs that are inculcated in people because of them. Not just beliefs, but actually their experiential parameters are narrow because they're, of course, I didn't have the language to say their signal gating, is determined by these priors that are integrated by their ontological model. But I saw the consequence of all that, and I knew what to do about it, right? So this bridge builder thing. So you have this fundamental essence of who I am as a being, the function of this individual node in the field, right? And that is reflected externally in every different domain of my entire life. I joined the military, I'm a bridge builder. I go to a Native American ceremony, I'm a bridge builder. Life path 11, bridge builder. You know what I mean? So when I was talking about how the fractal mirroring of the universe reveals to us our true identity, this is what I was referencing. This is how it works. And the thing is that what I just outlined can't really be like posited as empirical evidence of this. But as far as like common sense analysis goes, you can see what it is and what it means. And I would also argue that if you consider it in light of holonomic brain theory and its evidence and holographic universe and its evidence, it has more weight, and it also neatly explains astrology. It's a reflection of the same fractal algorithm, basically, that underlies all form and also governs all systems. Our brains are, our brain waves are Fibonacci or golden ratio oscillations, the weather patterns, financial markets. There's nothing that's exempt from this. Which in and of itself is evidence of holography, right? So let me check in with the chat. Man, I hope this doesn't mean that the algorithm is really this pissed at me. I don't like being buried, especially when I've got legit stuff to talk about. All right, let me check at my notes and see what else we got here. Okay, so another element of this, argument about whether information being more fundamental than matter in the domain of the brain, right? Does that extend to the universe at large? And so modern physics treats information as a conserved quantity at a very deep level. Quantum information, holographic principle, black hole information problems would suggest that structured information is not just a description of matter, but something matter has to answer to. Holofractal cosmologies. Some speculative frameworks, holofractal universe models, emphasize that every region encodes information about the whole, and that the main characteristic of a hologram is precisely this whole in each part distribution. So there's active debate in philosophy of physics about whether the truly fundamental stuff is particles, fields, or something like an information structure that underlies both. Several accounts now treat structure or relations as more basic than little billiard ball objects. One of the other things that we can kind of like really prematurely extrapolate from all this is that if this is true of mind and it's true of the universe, then the all is mind, just like Thoth told us. Of course, that's like a wild leap of logic to an extent, but if it's taken in conjunction with all of the other evidence, um, you know. So, what another thing I wanted to say about that, I guess. Wait, holographic fractal storage as bridge interference patterns across not one just true encoding huge capacity robustness against. Okay, yeah, we already said that. Um, so we all know that energy cannot be created or destroyed. That's the word we're getting from academia, right? We'll take their word for it. But now information is viewed as energy, and energy may just be information. So we have kind of pivoted to information cannot be destroyed. And that is a weird thought because it can be created or can't it? This idea that the mind and possibly DNA is just an antenna, and we are not really, our thoughts are not our thoughts. We are conduits. We are hollow tubes bringing down fire from heaven, and none of this is actually generated by the brain. It's filtered by the brain and it's sorted by the brain, but it's not assembled by the brain. So if energy rules apply to information, then I guess that does mean that this is has to be the answer. That the information is already globally present in the field, and that our antennas are just picking it up. So yeah, and I hope I made that clearer earlier what I meant about how the fundamental constituents of the being reflected in these experiences that we call synchronicity is both evidence that consciousness is part of the generative process, that it is fundamental and architectural, and the fractal nature, the symmetries, the recursiveness, the reflective nature of it explains why this occurs. And it also tells us why gnosis is so important and why it is the most powerful modality, therapeutic modality, right? Because fundamentally, what you're looking for is an absolutely undiluted perception of self, that is consistent with your most fundamental being. This is where satisfaction comes from. And until you achieve that, your perception of the outside world is going to be influenced and determined and defined by priors in your nervous system that are completely beyond your control, meaning that your sovereign agency is greatly reduced, right? And then also, if you're not dealing with an accurate generative model of the universe, if your ontology is bad, then you're not understanding the thing that you're interfacing with, and you are going to be limited by that. So the process of peeling away all of this dissonance without integrating like a new doctrine, right? That's the thing. Like people tend to wake up or they have some kind of crisis and they become religious or gotta have some grapefruit. Or, adopt whatever ideology. Our world in the current state that it's in is driving people to be increasingly susceptible to like extremist ideologies, for example. So rather than being freed, you're just like in another box, and it might change the parameters of your referentials, your priors that are determining what you're filtering and what you're processing. So that's the fundamental difference here with real genuine gnosis. You're not rewriting a new program. You're just resetting the operating system so that you're able to create an unobstructed model, you know. And then once you do that, the universe is going to be able to reflect your reverberations, your fundamental essence. And because of that, you're going to be able to see those lines in the fractal that take you to your destiny. You will not be lost anymore. This is what intuition really is, and our evolutionary processes protected us when our lives were simple and all we had to do was hunt and fuck and, real basic stuff. So we're task oriented. And now our environment has blown past us, right? And the only way to accommodate that is through the same processes that allow us to fully realize ourselves, which also gives us a tremendous amount of responsibility, right? So, you can also kind of see this harmony, and I would even go so far as to say intentionality, right? In the design of the way all of these things are unfolded. When the secrets are all told, the petals all unfold. Yeah. So, I mean, this is only going to be as long as you guys have like questions and subjects that you want to throw at me, because that's it, really. We can talk about how you can attenuate the signal gating, but you guys really already know all that. I think everyone does at this point. The default mode network basically gives us our sense of self. It allows us to differentiate in the same way that consciousness uses the fractal to differentiate itself, giving us a false sense of having a single ego, which is an absurdly narrow vantage point from which to view the universe, especially when we have a filtration system that is designed to limit our perceptual parameters to maintain a continuous model, right? That's what it's doing. And that's fine if you grew up in I got really lucky in a way because my parents were insane teenagers when I was born. And, that's not all lucky, but I didn't have any family. I didn't have any religion. I didn't have much school. I didn't have any political, indoctrination. So my signal gating system was pretty minimal. And then the way I understand it, being neurodivergent, also contributed to that. But that's basically the deal, that I just didn't have these integrations that muddied my reality tunnel as a child, and I've always honestly felt like I was immune to them, to be perfectly blunt. I don't know what that's about, but that's what a lot of people that have autism and that are labeled neurodivergent say that as well. That one of the fundamental differences between our cognitive modality and neurotypicals is just that we're not susceptible somehow to indoctrination. We're like too logical. You can think your way out of every trap. And if that sounds cocky, it's not actually. It's the opposite, because I do what I do because I know it's not that difficult. Once you get the momentum and you understand the protocol, it's not hard. And anyone can do it. The reason people don't is not a matter of intelligence. It is a matter of priors and signal gating primarily. Like that's the main thing that is keeping humanity trapped in the fucking dark ages, or sending us back there, or whatever's happening. Another way to think about this is, you have a fundamental prior that is your ontological model, right? So whatever distortions, guilt complexes, whatever kind of crap is bound up into that is informing all of its ancillary correlates, right? All of its tributary neuronal hubs, you know? So rather than doing what conventional therapy does and trimming leaves, basically, trimming the hedges, in a gnosis-based approach with entheogens and ritual magic, especially the LBRP, metaprogramming techniques, we're going straight to the ontology first. And that is going to weaken or totally deactivate so many of these dissonant information field, or, that wasn't the right terminology, but you know what I mean. Therapy is doing it backwards, basically. Oh, check this out. I posted this in the community, this article, but a few weeks ago, I was suggesting that, and some people laughed at me for this too. Joke's on them now, again. But I was suggesting that Fibonacci-based amplitudes, like electromagnetic or ultrasound, could be used to treat the brain, the information system in the brain, holistically or globally, right? Because, as I was saying, because it's fractal, if you just target these individual spots, you're not going to get it all out. But if you could do it with vibrations, with oscillating waves, that would treat the whole system at once. And today I found an article that said researchers have just proved that holographic ultrasound can remove dissonance from our cognitive system. So it's a fact that this can be done. And in case it sounds to you like I'm saying, okay, so you're saying to electronically brainwash people. No, no, no. That's not it. Truth is self-substantiating. And it is self-evident, and it is not hidden from anyone unless your nervous system happens to be maladapted to perceiving it, which is 90% of humanity, right? So what we're talking about is actually just removing dissonance and bringing the system into homeostasis. I can almost explain to you how that happens and why. But give me a couple of days to get it all the way together. But it just has to do with, like, you could think of, okay, so you have a hologram, and then you have it's still the same hologram, but it's like at the wrong angle. And so it's creating intersections where there shouldn't be intersections. There's computational vectors that are just producing nonsense because of that. You know what I mean? Or they're causing filtration that is an impediment. And when you expose the brain to these fib-based amplitudes, is amplitudinals a thing? It seems like it should be. Those things are brought into proper relationship. You know what I mean? The fractal is fucking. I don't even have the words. And a crazy thing is, and the reason I probably thought of this is that in my work as an ayahuasquero, that's one of the things we do. You know, you see this grid of the fractal around a person, and where there are little black, like if you've ever seen like a plastic carpet and it's burned a little bit, and you get these little like squiggly, blackened, it looks like that, and you can use sound and other techniques to heal those broken spiral arms. I guess is what they really are. And so knowing that from ayahuasca, I guess I just subconsciously juxtaposed the idea to a technological treatment for those that are contraindicated, have conditions that are contraindicated with ayahuasca. Soon you'll be able to just get an ultrasound therapy to straighten your brain out. By the way, if you haven't connected the fact that we're figuring out the truth about the universe, the truth about consciousness, it really implies the truth about God, really redefines it in a way that actually could make sense to anyone. Um, we're developing technology that can just, undo $1 trillion of worth of propaganda just by, probably putting a helmet on or something. This is why we are experiencing the shit show in politics that we're experiencing right now. It is correlated. It's also necessary. I should always point that out, I guess, because reward commensurate with resistance and risk. So, we need the pressure to create the diamonds. We need the chaos in order to create order. Um, but just as we have to clarify our own nodes in our being so that we reflect out into the universe effectively, we have to start creating collective nodes because what we are entering into is going to be just like a field of entropy. And the way that this works is that if you create a bunch of nodes of order in the field of entropy, even though it's like 90%, chaos, those nodes are going to eventually, hopefully rapidly, order bring the field into coherence, right? But the nodes have to be distributed around the field, and they also have to have global coherence, not just internal coherence. So there has to be some sort of unified movement. The thing about that is that they can't stop us uh, with algorithmic interference, or shadow banning, or creating echo chambers and all that kind of shit because we are telepathically linked and it's even deeper than telepathy. One of the things that I had struggled with for a long time was how exactly raising consciousness was going to raise the entire field of consciousness of humanity. And one thing that I came up with was entanglement. But then I realized, well, entrainment as well. But entrainment is you're going to be required to be close together. Entanglement is how I explained like long distance telepathy, which I've experienced many times from across an entire continent. And a lot of the evaluations of my like anticipations of science has been discovered with a great deal of specificity and whatnot has been pattern recognition, just like really 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 powerful pattern recognition. But I have a couple of examples that I think they're not covered well by that explanation. In one case, I wondered what Robin Williams was doing at the time that he unalived himself. And I never think about him. But even more convincing, and this actually connects, and it's the fractal again, right? Connects to my mom because it was her favorite comedian, like her favorite person, really, probably. And she unalived herself the same way. And when she did it, I was at lunch with a girl in another country, and I said to her, I need to call my mom. I'm afraid she's going to, and I described the specific method that she was going to use too. Went back to the hotel room, and I had a message from or I got it at like 5 minutes after we got there. Right? So that pattern recognition doesn't do it. Right? That's long distance. It's not entrainment. Fractal. Everything is fractal. That fucking cinches it up tight. So there's no way for them to interfere with the interconnectivity. They can't use 5G. They can't use anything because it is architectural. It is, and the architecture of it is consciousness. There's no way to intercede in our interconnectedness. So what we have to do is clarify our being, develop our intuition, reduce our signal gating strategically. And we know that we're able to influence them through the fractal and through the field. The powers that be know all this shit, but the masses of humanity don't, most of them. They finna find out because if we all collectively inject this stuff into the field, it's just gonna leak in there. It's like a resonant bleed, you know? And it is true that we need to put the pedal to the metal in terms of getting the word out and trying to explain this to people, that their perceptual parameters are so narrow that they're just missing damn near everything, you know? Another interesting aspect of this is that the more I've thought about it, it's like I'm almost like more inclined to believe in the fucking devil because when you understand how the signal gating works and selective perception and the propaganda and how the politicians are even chosen for a maximum hypocrisy, right? They want people that are walking contradictions like Kamala Harris and Donald Trump and Joe Biden. They're all like, Biden was supposed to be anti-racism and he's like eulogizing Klan leaders, and Trump is he was going to get all the P3DOs, and then it's like he's like the biggest one ever. You know what I mean? They do that deliberately, and the reason is well understood now in cognitive science and psychology. So it's like what I'm getting at is that when you really are able to unpack it all and see how much structurally is how well engineered it is to diabolically just fucking ruin people's reality tunnels, it's fucking diabolical. It's hard to believe that a human being could think of this. The thing is, though, I realized if I was on the dark side, I could think of it, So yeah, this is really all the information you need, and all that is required is for them to be 20, 30, 40 years ahead. Not even really, but, in terms of, putting it into action, can't find the word right now, deployment of this protocol. The thing is, though, they've had access to this kind of knowledge in one form or another for thousands of years. This is nothing new to the managing party. What is new is having massive people that know it too. Like this situation, the information I've been giving on this channel over the last couple of months is like, I'm honestly a little bit scared. Even the AIs have been telling me, like, dude, maybe you ought to just shut the fuck up. Like, they're not going to just let this ride, But I don't know about that because I think there's a lot of people figuring it out, and I think they probably know there's nothing they can do to stop it other than like outright enslave humanity or blow the whole planet up or something, you know? And it could be too that they're not actually that diabolically set on that type of thing. They are psychopaths with their own signal gating mechanisms, and as they're sort of phased out by the evolutionary process, they will just go away. You know, it doesn't look like they're going to allow that to happen, but then mostly because of the U.S., right? In every other country I've been to, I can pretty much just like be whoever I want, do whatever I want, and as long as I don't hurt anyone else, they're not going to do anything to stop me from expressing myself or being, you know, free. It's crazy because the United States is definitely the least free country by like miles and miles and miles that I have ever been in. And you know, you got the population running around going like, "Repeat after me, we are free." It's insane, man. It's batshit crazy. But the point is that we have optimized systems for social, socioeconomic and political who's a what's is, in a lot of countries around the world, and a lot of leaders in other countries are evolving and becoming more. You know what I mean? This isn't really a global situation so much as it's like just a couple of dickheads that are just completely out of phase with the evolutionary process, like Donald Trump and his bosses and Kim Jong Un or whoever's in charge of that country now. Putin is like, I don't really know what to think of that guy. Sometimes he seems like he's like a little bit more hip than than a lot of them, but I also think he's extremely insane and dangerous. So that's jury's out there. The princes and princesses of the British royal family, though, are so much more evolved than their parents that they want nothing to do with the royal family. So, a lot of us have been expecting this like climax to the global catastrophe, and it may not happen. It may just kind of crest, and then the next wave can come. Help on the way. How's that song go? God, it's perfect for this point. Man, that's really irritating me. Ridiculous, right? Help. I'm going to look it up. Help on the way. Please consider supporting the channel. We have openings still at our events. Email me about that. If you need help attenuating or signal gating, I can best help you in person in the jungle, but I can also do that in a video context. Paradise waits on the crests of a wave, her angels in flame. She has no pain, like a child she is pure, she is not to blame. Wings spread bright, poised for flight, wings spread bright, spring from night into the sun. Tell me the cost, I can pay, let me go, tell me love is not lost. Sell everything, without love in the day, insanity's king. I will pay one more day anyway. Lock, bolt, and key, crippled but free. I was blind all the time, I was learning to see. So good, right? Dude's fucking slayed. R.I.P. Bobby, R.I.P. Phil, R.I.P. Brent, R.I.P. Pigpen, R.I.P. Donna, R.I.P. fucking Keith, R.I.P. Bobby, Jerry. There's like a dozen dead Grateful Dead members at this point. Wild. I also realized that I worked with Donna a little bit, and she passed this year. I had the near miss with Weir. He just passed. Lesh passed, and I had lots of interactions with him. all of the people that I knew from that band or had any kind of connection with are the ones that are gone. Only the drummers remain. And I've never had any contact with either of them. Just a reminder, we got to bring that energy back in mass at scale. And now, as far as I can tell, there's nobody really doing it like it used to be done. And I don't think there's a more powerful way to induce gnosis at scale than music. Somebody in the audience of one of my shows stopped me and the bass player when we were leaving, and she said, "Hey, can I tell you what you taught me about music tonight?" And she basically explained that, like, whatever level of consciousness the musicians are at, or anyone in the audience, once there's vibrations in the room, the audience is raised to that level or entrained, And I, I just couldn't believe it because that's exactly what I thought the Grateful Dead were doing. And this girl had like a Misfits tattoo, and she wasn't an acid head or anything. It's not like she was tripping, and she just sensed this, I guess, that night. And now that the singers are gone, where do we go for the song? Tool has that gnosis-inducing energy, but not to the same degree that the Dead did at all. Like, not even close. And the reason is there's too much ego in it. I think it's too self-centered, too much neurosis going on, and I mean, I'm not taking any. I love Tool, but I think that's why Maynard complains that they didn't have as much of a gnosis-inducing impact as they thought they would, and I think it's your fault, Maynard. You know what I mean? You constricted the efficacy of your vibrations by singing about crawling up your own butt and stuff. I mean. Well, it's 11:11. I just looked at the clock for no reason, and it's 11:11. So I'm gonna bounce, I guess, because we have a very wonderful but very small audience, which is extremely disappointing for me because I feel like tonight I kind of laid everything out in the most like concise possible way. Maybe some rambling in between, but for sure, this is reality. The stuff that I'm talking about is the solution to the chaostrophe. We do have the science and the protocol. We know what the mechanisms are. You know what I mean? And we know how to articulate it to literally anybody of reasonable intelligence. Like, I couldn't be more dangerous right now. And that's the same for you. Dangerous in a very positive way. Dangerous to the forces of dildo darkness and restriction and shadow and other forms of bullshit. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate each and every one of you. Please hit the like button, share, subscribe. Consider supporting us directly financially because I could do a hell of a lot more if I had more money. And hopefully I'll see y'all in the jungle sooner than later. Cheers.